Hello and welcome back to Paddock and Track, the show where we bring you news on and off the track. My name is Amaan and I'm joined, as always, by my lovely co-host Max.
Hey guys.
And today we are bringing you the Chinese Grand Prix at last.
Yes, so this Grand Prix has a sprint.
Yes.
So that's very exciting. As always with the sprint. So we will begin then with the sprint.
Oh, wow.
So looking over it, we see Hamilton on pole, a sight that we have not seen in a long time.
Yeah, it seems like he's finally figuring out the Ferrari. It might be a fluke. We don't know yet, but knowing that he is a 7-time world champion, this is really much a very good thing for him to get acclimated this quickly in the Ferrari. We know that the Ferrari is very much a different car than the Mercedes is, and he has been with Mercedes for a very long time. So getting used to it usually would take a while, but he's doing really well right now. So
Yeah, it seems like it.
yeah.
And then we're also seeing Max Verstappen in second. So obviously still a good result for him. We've seen Verstappen do obviously better than second, but second's nothing to sneeze at. And then Oscar Piastri third place. So rounding out the top three with Oscar Piastri. So we've seen I feel like he's been doing a really, really good job recently. Piastri, he's been. Because, especially Norris is starting sixth place. Mm-hmm. So when you compare the two, Piastri's been doing a very good job. Yes, of course, at this point, Norris is leading the world championship. But I think it's something to note that, Piastri is doing really well consistently this season far.
I think that Piastri will do really well, I think, this season. He will at least, since the McLaren is really fast, I think he's really good. I wouldn't say second driver. I feel like they both are the same.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's always hard to say because from appearances, it seems like they're both kind of the same, but you never know exactly what they're doing within the team. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it seems like they're doing a pretty good job of balancing that.
Yeah.
And then we also see Leclerc in P4, so behind Hamilton, of course, a couple places down from Hamilton, but still a good result for the Ferraris, especially considering they've had their fair share of problems. And what we don't see is a Mercedes until fifth place. So yes, Mercedes, I feel like has been doing good. But in this race, the highest Mercedes we see here is George Russell in fifth place. Mm-hmm. So you see two Ferraris, a Red Bull, and a McLaren ahead of the Mercedes. So is it fair to say that the the Mercedes is not the fastest car at this race? I mean, I think we know it's not the fastest, but is it the worst of the big teams?
Well, that I think is difficult to say. I think the Red Bull is the most questionable, only because, well, I don't know if this is just because we see Lawson all the way down to P19.
P19. Well, he would have been, I think, last, but Hulkenberg is starting.
Yeah, but still. He's P19, Max is P2. I don't know if it's a performance or it's just like a curse of the second Red Bull seat.
Yeah.
Or it's the car that's just unstable, that's only built for Max, and Max is just, how Max Verstappen is. Mm-hmm. He's the one carrying that car to P2. But we don't know. I think it's similar. I don't know. It's weird. It's
yeah.
weird.
No, I definitely agree. And then again, we see Norris in sixth place and then Antonelli seventh place. I think we were both skeptical, and I think reasonably skeptical of Antonelli coming into this season. But in the first, it's only been 2 races, but in these first 2 races, he's not been that bad. Especially considering he's a rookie and you have to consider he is in a pretty good car with that Mercedes. But still, coming in as a rookie, and a pretty young rookie at that.
Yeah.
And he's already 7th place for the sprint, and then we'll get into the Grand Prix, but starting 8th place in the Grand Prix, slightly further down there, but still, at least for the sprint, the best of the rookies.
Yes, because we can definitely see. I mean, with Lawson all the way down there in P19, mm-hmm. So like. It's car, but also it's the skill too. So and I think he has the skill to do well in F1, and let's see how it goes from here though.
Yeah. We also see Yuki Tsunoda in 8th place, so in that RB, he's doing pretty well. He did well in qualifying for the race as well. And then Albon in 9th place, Stroll in 10th place to round off the top 10. Albon, a very good result here. Mm-hmm. Sainz starting in 13th. I think we can get into this a little more too when we get into the race, but feel like people expected a lot more from Sainz, and I understand, of course, that the Williams is not a very good car.
Yeah.
But when you compare his performance to Albon's, it's a little iffy, just because we expected Sainz to do well, and he's just doing meh. He's doing like a Williams, and he's not doing like a former Ferrari driver that is a multiple time race winner.
Yes, but I think the same thing with Hamilton though. He's in a new car. I mean, I don't know how to like put this in, but I feel like that Sainz, he still needs to get used to the car a little bit too. It's still early in the season.
Yeah.
And I feel like he could get better results though. Albon has been in that Williams for a while.
This is true.
So I think that naturally he will in the beginning do better, but I feel like Sainz will pick it up a bit, and I feel like there's going to be a fight between head-to-head fight more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I guess we'll have to see. Yeah, because you're right. He is probably still getting used to that car.
Mm-hmm.
I also see Alonso in 11th, so actually out-qualified by Lance Stroll. Not something that we saw a lot, especially last season.
Yeah.
But I do feel like it's hard to say whether Stroll is getting better or Alonso just seems to be having worse results, doing worse.
I think it's Alonso getting worse. There's no way Stroll is getting better.
Well, yeah, you never know. It could be a bit of both, to be fair. But it's a little tricky. It's tricky to say. But yeah, I feel like Stroll just seems to be doing better than Alonso.
Yeah.
Which is, I mean, I'm sure it's great for Stroll because he needs at least some kind of performance. But for Alonso, it's not the best. But he is the oldest driver on the grid, so and then we also see Ollie Behrman in 12th place. So, again, ahead of Carlos Sainz and then ahead of a bunch of the rookies. Really, he's only behind Antonelli. And especially considering he is in arguably probably the second worst car. Bortoleto, realistically, in the stake has the worst car. But Hadjar 15th behind Bortoleto in 14th and Jack Doohan in 16th.
Then, Bortoleto is only behind Behrman, so he's like the third place rookie right now.
Yeah, that's true.
In that worst stake car that you just said. So, not bad for him as well.
Yeah. And then also Gasly somehow behind Doohan.
That's never, I don't know. Ever happen again.
And then Ocon in 18th because the Haas is not good. But, I mean, clearly Behrman seems to have figured something out, so a little interesting there. And then Lawson 19th and Hülkenberg in the pit lane. Liam Lawson. I don't even know if he counts as a rookie at this point because he's not
racing
really
so much,
right? But this is a little sad.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't know. There's nothing else to be said. It's a little sad.
He's in P19, yeah. It's pretty bad.
So the sprint overall was not the most eventful, but the biggest things I think to note here, like we said, Hamilton on pole. Clearly, he seems to be getting a little more adjusted to that car, and it's starting to suit him better. Of course, it's I'm sure a big adjustment coming from the Mercedes to the Ferrari. You've got a different engine, a whole new car, of course, and then different setup things, stuff like that. So it's a lot to get adjusted to, but he seems to be doing at least okay because he managed to take pole here.
Yeah.
And then he managed to win the sprint race. Honestly, he was relatively unchallenged. Partly because I think Verstappen was having troubles with the car that I think continued into the race.
Yeah.
But overall, he was just able to just be consistent with that car. So clearly he seems to be getting a grip on it because, it's hard to get that consistency unless you have a good, solid grip on the car.
Yeah. And like you said before, Verstappen having struggles, was passed by Piastri in the race or in the sprint. And yeah, it just goes to show how not good the Red Bull is,
and how good the McLaren
is, and how good Piastri is as well. I mean, we see Verstappen muscle his way with the car and get good results, but this time around, Piastri did pass him out this time.
Yeah.
And,
and the rest of the grid honestly is relatively unchanged. I think one of the larger things to note here is Yuki Tsunoda, I mean, yes, he started in 8th place, so it's not the hugest achievement, but he got up to 6th place, so he passed Antonelli, and actually he got past Norris, but part of it was because Norris had a terrible start. But, Yuki is in that Racing Bull, and he's still able to produce solid results.
Yeah.
Making his way all the way up to 6th, and then in qualifying, slightly less good, but he still qualified 9th for the race, qualified 8th for the sprint. So clearly he's still able to put up results even in that RB. And then we also see, again, Hamilton winning it, Piastri coming out on top over Verstappen, and Russell was able to make up some spots. Well, really only one, but he was able to get past Leclerc. So, it's a very tricky question of every weekend. I think we go over the same question of like who had the best car. I think in the race it was much more clear, and we'll get into that. But in this case, it was really hard to tell. The Ferrari, on the one hand, Hamilton was fast, but at the same time, like Leclerc was not as fast as Russell.
Yeah.
So then it comes down to like, well, is it based on driver skill? So I think though in the sprint, I feel like the best car was probably. Because I want to say the McLaren because of Piastri,
I think it is the McLaren because you said that Norris had a terrible start.
That's the thing, but he still had 19 laps to get, and he didn't even get past Antonelli. And I mean, yes, true. Antonelli isn't still a good car, and we have said again, Antonelli does seem to be developing very well, and I think he genuinely is a good driver. But at the same time, he is a rookie at the end of the day, and theoretically in a car that's not as good.
I think it's inconclusive, only because Hamilton had a free pass, only because Verstappen had so much trouble.
Yeah.
And he was just holding up behind him.
Yeah.
So then Piastri did eventually pass him, though. But at that point, it was too late, and Hamilton got the win. So I think it is tough to tell. I think in the race, we can tell more who was the best car.
Yeah. And then a few other notes to make. Gasly making his way all the way up to 12th place. So pretty good considering he started in 17th. Gabriel Bortoleto and Nico Hulkenberg ending up essentially at the back of the grid. Jack Doohan is technically 20th, as he had a 10-second penalty. We also see Carlos Sainz down in 17th. So again, not so great result from Carlos Sainz.
Yeah.
Again, well, we talked about it, but he is Carlos Sainz. We know he is a good driver, but it's just he needs to get a grip with the car. And yes, it's only the second race, and this isn't even a full race, but still, I think a lot of people expected a lot more from him. Especially considering, I mean, Albon, not the best result, but he's still 11th place, which is higher than 17th. So, and then we see also Hadjar, ends up 13th. So he made up 2 places. So that's something.
Both the RBs out-qualified Lawson again.
Yeah, Lawson, I don't know. It's a little sad. Although Lawson, to be fair, did make it up to 14th. So he made up a couple places.
Yeah.
But considering he's in a Red Bull and he was passing drivers like Bortoleto, well, actually, because Bortoleto dropped. So like Bortoleto and like Ocon, I don't think it's that that crazy. But so he did make up a few places. You have to give him credit for that. But at the end of the day, it's like. I think you need a little more to be a Red Bull driver.
Yeah, and then the Haas is overall slow, 15th, 16th for Behrman and Ocon. Yeah. So, yeah.
But getting into the race, we see some very interesting things. First of all, Piastri on pole. So clearly, after his good form in the sprint, he was able to pull that together in the qualifying.
George Russell, second place. So those questions about the Mercedes clearly wasn't shown here by Russell, which he got P2. And splitting the third McLaren or the second McLaren in third place, Lando Norris.
Yeah, and then Verstappen behind all 3 of them in 4th with Hamilton behind. So Hamilton and Leclerc, Hamilton 5th, Leclerc 6th. So not quite as good a performance for them in terms of the qualifying for the race.
Yeah.
But it's not terrible considering the kind of performance that Ferrari has had in past seasons. This is not horrible. And again, Hamilton out qualifying Leclerc. So that's the second time this weekend, of course. But interesting, I think, to note just because Leclerc has so much experience in this car. Well, and with this team in general. And so, maybe the car, they have similar amounts of experience, but with the team, he has so much time. He has so much experience with, and yet Hamilton's still outperforming, at least for this race.
Yeah.
That's something to note.
Yeah, and then we see 2 rookies in 7th and 8th, but it's not Antonelli in 7th. It's Isaac Hadjar in 7th, which is really good for him, especially in that RB car.
Yeah.
I think both the RBs did really well. I think Hadjar in 7th and Tsunoda in 9th.
But even Hadjar out qualifying Tsunoda.
He did.
Not by a huge margin, but also both of those cars into Q3.
Yes.
Really impressive performance from Hadjar, especially considering, I think it takes a lot of, considering how Australia went for him, it was sad. Crashing on the formation lap. Yes, it was slippery and it was his first race, but it's sad. So for him to bounce back like this, come back, qualify 7th ahead of his teammate, in the RB, I think was really impressive for him and really kind of showed that like he is a competitive driver. I mean, he had a very good shot at the F2 championship.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, he had problems on the grid, but of that final race. But I think this was important for him to come back and show that he is a good driver. He has the skills that it takes to compete in this field, and qualify 7th place.
Yeah, it's really good for him. But the close behind him is the other rookie, the second rookie, Antonelli over here. So again, he's doing really well to qualify in P8, getting into Q3. But, he's in that Mercedes, so, again, he's in a good car, but really good for him, though, to manage that car and get into
definitely
8th place.
We also see Alex Albon up in 10th place, so a decent start for him, starting within the points. That's always good. And then Ocon in 11th. So this, we kind of see a flip-flop of the Haas drivers. Ocon up in 11th and Behrman down in 17th. This is kind of, I feel like, Ocon had a good qualifying. There's nothing else to be said.
Yeah.
It was a good qualifying. Yes, he didn't make it into Q3, but top of the people that got knocked out in Q2, and it's still decent. You're right on the fringe of the points.
Yeah.
And he's accompanied by Nico Hulkenberg behind him.
Q2, yeah.
Yeah, 12th place for the stake car. And then Alonso this time out qualifying Stroll in 13th and 14th though, so it's what does it even matter at that point? Sainz down in 15th, so
again he's still not getting there.
Yeah.
He did worse this time around. Yeah.
Yeah, so not great for him. And then the rest of the grid, it's Behrman, Doohan, Bortoletto, and Lawson. So the 4 of the 6 rookies down there at the bottom of the grid. Yeah.
It's 20, yeah?
Yeah, Liam Lawson in last place. I don't think we need to talk about Lawson anymore.
We will talk about Lawson, but like in a different sense.
Yeah, when you get out qualified by stake, that's how you know you have problems.
Yeah, not let alone both RBs, bro.
Yeah, but both stake drivers too.
Man.
Even Jack Doohan. So it's not a good showing for
not really, not at all.
Now when we get into the race, it seemed clear in the race that the McLaren was the fastest car.
Norris redeemed himself from his disastrous start.
Yeah,
sprint.
He actually managed to have a good start here at the beginning. There was a little bit of kerfuffling, but Norris was able to get past Russell right at the start. Which was definitely good for him and helped with Piastri just to play the team game, kind of defend. So that was, I think, a good start for Norris, something that he needed, again, like you said, after his kind of terrible start. But who did have kind of a out of character terrible start was Max Verstappen. Yeah, usually we see pretty good starts from Max Verstappen. He's pretty consistent, but this time was one of his less good starts. And he really, though, to be fair, at the beginning of the race, he really seemed to be struggling with that car. It was not, and same with the sprint. It really was not until later in the race when he was on like lower fuel
that he started to pick up the pace.
Yeah. So a little weird for Verstappen, a little bit out of character, just to be down a lot, kind of a decent amount of places.
Yeah. So I think that just goes to show how not good the car is right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's pretty bad for Red Bull.
Well, and speaking of not good cars, Fernando Alonso was having problems. He just did not have brakes, and then he had to retire. So, it's sad.
Yeah,
I don't know. You feel bad for Alonso because it's like he's been in this sport for so long, and it's he's
got
not
an unreliable car.
Yeah, the team's just like Aston Martin's not necessarily like a bad team. They're not the worst team by any means, but I just feel like they seem to struggle a lot with reliability.
Yeah.
Which I think is something that you really need in this sport. When you look at like Red Bull in like 2023 when they were so incredibly good, they had like no reliability problems. Their car was just good like week after week. race after race, and that I think is really something that helps. Yes, the Red Bull situation was very different than Aston Martin. The Aston Martin's not winning races, right? But
even now though, they still have good reliability. The only they haven't really retired from any mechanical or thing. The only thing that they did retire was last year in Australia. Was it Australia?
Yeah, it was Australia with
Max
with
Verstappen's brake exploded. But that was like the one time in like 3 years 4 years that they had no reliability issues.
Well, I think that's too, to kind of go off on a tangent here. It's something that speaks to like the development that Red Bull has had, because especially before when their engines were like Renault supplied, and then when they were purely Honda without because now they're like Red Bull with Honda backing. But when they were just Honda supplied engines, and on the Renault engines, I feel like they had a lot of reliability issues. And also I think Max Verstappen was a less mature driver, and he would kind of crash a lot. But so that their ability to develop the car and the engine, especially to be reliable, is something that I think was really crucial to them being so good, in 2021, and then continuing that. And then that's something that, I think that Aston is struggling with in recent times, is that reliability, because I feel like they just keep having retirements due to reliability, and I feel like it's always for Alonso. So I don't know if that says something, but yeah, so I think that the reliability is something that's really holding Aston back. We saw them have like a couple really good results a couple seasons ago now.
And then when that good beginning season, they began the season really well.
Yeah, and then they kind of faltered off. So we've seen them have the ability to do good. And I think we'll see what happens next 2026. With the Honda engines. As well as the new regulations, of course, that'll play a role with everyone. But we'll see what happens with them, and hopefully they can fix some of these reliability problems.
Yeah.
We also see Bortoleto had a little moment where he spun. Did it really impact the race? No, but I felt like we should mention it. It's just like you said, like rookies are still getting used to the car. You can see that across the board with all the rookies, but it's better than Behrman at Sao Paulo last year, so,
Yeah. We see Hamilton and Leclerc swapping positions.
Yeah, that was interesting. The fact that Ferrari had them switch positions, made the call to make them switch. I thought that was interesting, especially because, we saw later in the race, not that much later, Hamilton had the fastest lap.
Yeah.
So it was clear that Hamilton had pace, but they wanted Leclerc to go ahead. I don't know, and I think part of that was to defend against Max Verstappen, and clearly it did not work. And also, both Ferraris got disqualified. But it was kind of a weird situation. I just didn't see any reason why they had to switch them. I suppose maybe at that point Leclerc was faster.
Maybe,
but I don't know.
I feel like the strategy calls for Ferrari this season have been very questionable and not good at all. But hopefully they have that figured out by the time the season, while the season goes on, because this is not good at all. Like last year, they were fine. Their calls were good. They're okay, and it's gotten good results. But this year, it's been pretty bad so far.
Yeah. We also saw, to speak to the performance of the Mercedes, Leclerc complaining that the Mercedes was like really fast and had a lot of grip everywhere. So that's obviously a good thing for Mercedes, especially considering how far they've come with their development of the car under these regulations. Starting in like 2022 with the zero pod, it was terrible.
So bad.
And now, they've actually been able to build a pretty solid car, especially like when you look back to 2022, 2023, they had like one or two good results, and then otherwise it was kind of But now they've really turned it around, I think, and they've been able to get like some solid results.
Well, you're mentioning 2022 though. There was only one team that figured out the regulations.
This is true, yeah, but still.
But I mean, by now, towards the end of the regulations, more teams have figured it out, especially McLaren.
Yeah.
So next year will be very fun to see who figures out the regulations. And I think everyone's going to be more on an even playing field.
Well, and the thing is, too, is that, to get into this a little bit, I think we can mention, with Cadillac coming, they have been officially approved, and GM has been approved as an engine manufacturer, so Cadillac is officially joining the grid in 2026. That's going to be very exciting, too. I think it's going to shake things up, because you're going to have two... Essentially, well, Audi like half counts because they have the Sauber platform that they're kind of going off of, but you have essentially two brand new teams coming to the grid with Audi and Cadillac, and I think that'll be really, really interesting to see. Especially I think to see who Cadillac goes with in terms of drivers. There's been a lot of rumors. Perez, even Sargent has been rumored. But I hope
because they want American drivers.
But there's been a lot of rumors floating around, especially about Perez. So we're gonna have to see what they go with. But it'll be, I think, really interesting to see, like you said, who's gonna master these regulations.
Yeah.
In 2026. And how will these new teams kind of deal with that?
Yeah, let's see.
And we'll figure, when we know more information on Cadillac, we'll be sure to relay it.
Yeah.
And then, but going back to the race here, we saw Norris kind of struggling, and I think part of that was his brake pedal started going long. So they're very used to a very specific feel in that brake pedal where it doesn't really move very much, and it's all based on pressure. But so when it starts to move, it feels weird for them.
Yeah.
And so that was, I'm sure, concerning for Lando Norris, but he managed to hold it together, and they got through the rest of the race, so it was fine.
Yeah.
I also the RBs, they had two problems here. First, they tried the 2-stop. It didn't really work.
Yeah.
Most people went on the 1-stop. I think the 1-stop clearly was the better strategy.
Yeah.
The 2-stop just did not work.
Nope.
The undercut on that first stop was helpful, and then the second stop they just did not. Yes, they had the fresh tires, but it just didn't work. They just were not fast enough, and so it was kind of a shame. But then
Yuki's wing exploded.
Yeah, I don't really know what happened.
He was racing and it just exploded.
Yeah, they're going so fast. There's a lot of air pressure, of course, but it just kind of, it's the inner part of the wing almost, or like the sort of like the front. I don't know.
It was weak already from something else.
Yeah, but it just kind of blew off. So he had a pit again, so that was 3 stops then for Yuki, so that essentially put him to the back of the grid, unfortunately for him, because he again had a very good starting position, and then his race got kind of ruined by that 2-stop strategy, but this did not help, of course. And then, Verstappen was able to pass Leclerc at the end. So, again, like we said, I think that car started to come to Verstappen towards the end of the race. So it's definitely something that Red Bull will have to look at and try and figure out. But it seemed like Verstappen had pace towards the end of the race and was able to catch Leclerc.
Yeah, it's nice that he passed Leclerc, but Leclerc is disqualified. So.
Yeah. So when we get into those disqualifications, unfortunately for Charles Leclerc, Pierre Gasly, and Lewis Hamilton, all 3 of them were disqualified, but for 2 different things, essentially. So Leclerc and Gasly were just barely under the minimum weight. So they were, I think both of them were exactly 800 kilograms, which is the minimum weight requirement when they had fuel in them. And then when the fuel was taken out, they were both basically 799 kilograms.
Wow.
So, just barely under that weight limit. And then Hamilton was due to the plank, which is funny because in last season, Leclerc and Hamilton were both disqualified for plank wear. Essentially, there's this wooden plank under the car, and if it gets, then they measure the wear on it, and if the wear is too high, then a driver gets disqualified because the car is running too low then. So 3 disqualifications from this race. Something that we don't see a lot.
Devastating for Ferrari.
Yeah, not good for Ferrari, especially considering they're running in a reasonable spot, 5th and 6th, and then nothing.
Yeah, wow.
So this actually promoted Esteban Ocon up to 5th place. So a very good result for Haas.
I mean, that was really good.
And Behrman in 8th. Yeah. Double points for Haas. I mean, we also see Piastri Norris 1-2, so McLaren 1-2 with Russell behind in 3rd place. Verstappen 4th. Kimi Antonelli, making those disqualifications helping him too. 6th place for him. Alex Albon up to 7th. Stroll scoring points in 9th, and Carlos Sainz getting some points.
1 point actually.
One point in 10th. Isaac Hadjar again, unfortunately, because of that.
He lost in P12.
Strategy. Yes, Lawson in 12th. Good for him.
Yeah.
Sure.
Except that
people
behind him actually were okay, so we got 3 disqualifications and a DNF.
And Jack Doohan had a 10-second penalty.
Yeah. And then Bortoleto and Hülkenberg are slow. So
and Tsunoda had to stop again. So a third time. So but he kind of capitalized on other people's
misfortunes.
Yeah, but it's all right, But what's not all right for Lawson is that he is out of Red Bull. We're gonna get into this.
Very good.
So for the Japanese Grand Prix, Lawson is officially out of the Red Bull. He has been yoinked out, and Yuki Tsunoda has been dropped in. Just as I said, should have happened from the start.
Yeah.
But Red Bull did not choose to listen to me until now.
I don't think they were specifically listening to you.
No, they definitely were. Finally, Yuki Tsunoda is in that Red Bull car. He we're gonna see. I think he's got a good shot. I mean, you have to consider
the best choice.
He is the best choice. Of the choices they have, he's the best choice.
I think so too.
And considering that he has been with the Red Bull program for like so long now, I'm glad he's finally getting his shot.
Oh yeah.
Especially considering Max Verstappen is probably gonna leave Red Bull soon.
What?
Because hey, the rumors are going crazy. Aston Martin is supposedly offering him like $300 million or something like that. Is what I think I saw. I don't know. That's a great question actually, but like. We're gonna see what happens, but Yuki might be holding down the front on Red Bull. We're gonna hope he gets some good performances.
I think that's good that they're offering Max Verstappen that, because they do have Adrian Newey now, and it's new regulations, so
and Honda.
They're all starting over. So it's basically Red Bull Light.
But we'll see what happens with that. But yeah, so Tsunoda is in. We know that Red Bull has a short temper when it comes to their drivers, but we will see.
It's for his home race, Japan.
Yeah. Japan. So I'm excited to see it, and we'll see how this ship rides.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that wraps it up for this episode of Paddock and Track, and we will see you guys for the next one.
Goodbye.